Tonight, battle ready. Fears of a full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine intensify. More than 110,000 troops on the border and counting. The U.S. warns of a grim toll as Vladimir Putin considers his next move.
I'm MTS Taib in Kiev, where warnings of mass casualties in a potential Russian invasion as Ukrainians uniting like never before.
President Biden returns to the White House as diplomats scramble for a peaceful solution. Also tonight, Omicron fading fast even as deaths rise.
I'm Lilia Luciano in Los Angeles, where California's COVID fatalities now top 80,000.
To the north, trucker-led pandemic protests spread across Canada. Plus, Beijing bubble will take you to the Winter Olympics like no other. And later, Platinum Jubilee. Queen Elizabeth marks an historic reign.
I'm Roxana Saberi outside Buckingham Palace. Today marks 70 years since Queen Elizabeth ascended to the throne, making her the world's longest reigning living monarch.
This is the CBS Weekend News from New York with Jerika Duncan.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Tonight, there are increasing signs that Vladimir Putin plans a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And the Biden administration now says that could happen at any time. Right now, more than 110,000 Russian troops are massed on the border. This weekend, U.S. troops from the 82nd Airborne Division arrived in Poland to demonstrate America's commitment to NATO's eastern flank. If Ukraine does become a battlefield, sources tell CBS News that civilian casualties could go as high as 100,000. Our MTS Taib reports from Kyiv.
In the cold light of winter, they prepare for the worst. But these paramilitary fighters are not Ukrainian. They're from the nation of Georgia, a country which also shares a long border and complex history with Russia, and are in Kyiv to train civilians to defend themselves. Among them are volunteers from other nations.
Okay, you're going to learn today about urban operations,
including American Justin Dean.
I'd like to protect the people of Kiev and the people of Ukraine and support them and train them in fighting off the Russian invaders.
The fear of a Russian invasion has triggered a sense of national unity across Ukraine not seen in years. In Kharkiv, the second largest city, a vibrant sea of blue and yellow, as thousands took to the streets waving Ukrainian flags in a show of patriotic spirit. But most here know it'll take much more than patriotism to defend against Russia, with this woman saying, "We want Ukraine to remain independent, always." The Kremlin continues to insist it has no plans to invade, despite amassing roughly 110,000 battle-ready troops along Ukraine's borders, while at the same time accusing the U.S. of trying to goad it into war.
U.S. intelligence officials say President Putin still hasn't decided whether to invade, but has nearly everything he needs to launch what could be the largest scale military operation Europe has seen since World War II. Jerika.
Oh, scary stuff. MTS Taib in Ukraine. Tonight, diplomatic efforts to defuse the crisis are being feverishly explored in Europe and Washington. That's where we find CBS's Christina Ruffini with more on alarming new intelligence reports. Christina, what are you hearing?
Good evening, Jerika. CBS News has learned that Moscow has amassed about 70% of the forces it would need to launch a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, an invasion the White House says could come at any time.
So at this point, we're in the window.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said today that Russia might not wait until after the Olympics to make a move against Ukraine.
Do you think there's any particular thing that Vladimir Putin is looking for, sir, in order to make this decision?
I think things he cannot get.
The Biden administration has threatened massive financial and political consequences.
If war breaks out, it will come at an enormous human cost to Ukraine, but we believe that based on our preparations and our response, it will come at a strategic cost to Russia as well.
American forces landed in Poland this weekend, and 8,200 more are on standby to back up NATO allies. Should Russia invade, estimates are it could cause as many as 100,000 civilian casualties and up to 5 million refugees.
If we now live in a world where you can just go in and take a country because you claim it, well, we've entered a very dangerous period in human history once again.
And there's another fear, that unchecked Russian aggression could encourage others, namely China, to do the same.
Our adversaries are watching. If Putin could go into Ukraine with no resistance, certainly Xi will take Taiwan.
Now, there is obviously a presence, Christina, in Eastern Europe, but the U.S. military is not sending troops directly into Ukraine, correct?
That's correct. The president has said explicitly U.S. forces are not going into Ukraine to fight Russia. What he is doing is sending forces out to back up U.S. allies, including about 2,000 troops to Poland, 1,000 to Romania, and more on standby if they're needed if Putin makes a move. Now, the U.S. really wants to confront Russia diplomatically, not militarily. The new German chancellor will be coming to the White House tomorrow, and you can bet Ukraine will be on the top of the list.
All right, Christina Ruffini at the White House for us. Thank you. After weathering the Omicron crush, new cases are dropping fast, but deaths are still up. The virus has now claimed more than 902,000 lives in the United States. CBS's Lilia Luciano is in Los Angeles tonight with more. Lilia, good evening.
Good evening, Jerika. Well, California is mirroring that trend where deaths are still spiking, but fortunately new infections are down. Here in West Hollywood, you can tell people are enjoying a weekend out for the Super Bowl. Sped up by Omicron, daily deaths have jumped nearly 30% in the last 2 weeks, most in states with low vaccination rates. More than 120,000 Americans are hospitalized with COVID, but admissions are slowing and new infections are plummeting nationwide. Cases have dropped more than 70% in Maryland and New York.
We're a good part of the way through this Omicron wave. We're not close to the end right now, depending on how you measure that. I think that this is going to be a long struggle.
All set. Health experts say the best defense are vaccines. Now 42% of Americans have that booster shot. And masking, though just 9 states still require masks indoors. And the anti-mandate battle is spreading across Canada. Hundreds of trucks and thousands of people continue blocking roads.
I support the truckers because they're standing up for freedom.
But patience on this 9th day of demonstrations is running thin, with counter-protesters demanding an end to disruptions. Ottawa's mayor declared a state of emergency because of those protests here in the U.S. Many of those mask mandates will soon be lifted, including here in California on February 15th. Jerika.
All right, Lilia Luciano, February 15th, not far away. Thank you. To Minneapolis now, where there was outrage this weekend. Hundreds marched through the streets protesting the police no-knock shooting death of 22-year-old Amir Locke. Body cam video shows a SWAT team announcing themselves and then shooting and killing Locke, who apparently was holding a gun when he was killed. Locke was licensed to carry the gun and had no criminal record. His name did not appear on the search warrant. Locke's parents are demanding answers for why their son was, quote, executed. The NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell responded today to a discrimination lawsuit by former Dolphins head coach Brian Flores. In a statement, Goodell said, quote, we have made significant efforts to promote diversity. However, we must acknowledge that particularly with respect to head coaches, the results have been unacceptable. We will reevaluate and examine all policies. Out of the NFL's 32 teams, there is one black head coach. Flores' attorneys call Goodell's statement a, quote, public relations ploy. Well, to the Winter Games in Beijing, Team USA has claimed its first medals. Julia Moreno from Westport, Connecticut won silver in slopestyle snowboard, and Jalen Koff of Vail, Colorado took silver in women's moguls. But the Team USA is still chasing gold, with Norway topping the medal count. CBS's Jamie Yukis has more.
This is the Zhengzhou mountain venue, site of most of the ski and snowboard events. It was here that 24-year-old Julie Moreno soared to a silver in the women's slopestyle. But the moment really belonged to Zoe Sadowski-Sennett, who nailed her third and final run. And the celebration was on, embraced by her competitors, including American Marino. It's the first ever winter medal for New Zealand. Tell me about the moment.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy moment landing that last run and that last jump. In the air, I was like, I have to use every part of me to land this.
While her emotion was raw and real, it's worth noting that the course itself was artificial. These games are the first with 100% man-made snow, because while plenty cold, on average, this area only sees 2 days of precipitation in February. To watch what unfolds in the mountain, every step of the journey has to stay within the bubble. Separate boarding areas and separate rail cars from the general population. The trains sleekly slice through some beautiful landscapes.
The high-speed train starts off pretty slowly, but it starts revving up. It'll reach 217 miles per hour. That's 3 times faster than a cheetah.
On arrival, yes, more temperature checks and mandatory sanitizing. At the mountain, the facilities here feel a bit more posh. The press center is normally a luxury ski resort. China is banking on a post-Olympic winter sports boom here.
The mountain zone continues to be challenging, from COVID to the artificial snow, and today the winds, gusts of up to 40 miles per hour, postponed men's downhill, which would have been the opening to alpine skiing. Jamie Yucas, CBS News, Zhengzhou, China.
Today marks an historic milestone in the life of Queen Elizabeth II. New photographs were displayed in London's Piccadilly Circus, celebrating 70 years on the throne. And this portrait shows the monarch alongside a picture of her father, King George VI, whose death elevated the young princess to a queen. We get now more from CBS's Roxana Saberi.
On February 6, 1952, a young Elizabeth was on a royal tour in Kenya when her father, King George VI, died suddenly.
The grievous news of her father's death reached the young queen, now aged 25, at this lodge in the highlands of East Africa. She and her husband returned immediately to London.
In the 7 decades since, she's overseen the transition from Britain's imperial past to a more modern monarchy, and guided her country through 14 prime ministers and crises, including a pandemic.
That if we remain united and resolute, then we will overcome it.
She has been a symbol of stability for the United Kingdom during, 70 years of huge economic, political, social change.
Royal correspondent Roy Anika says today marks a massive milestone for the monarch. Why is this such a big deal?
No British monarch has been on the throne for that long. Given her age, given her steadfastness, it's a moment, I think, for her to reflect and for the nation to reflect on her service.
Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Windsor wasn't born to serve as a queen, but when her uncle, King Edward VIII, abdicated to marry an American divorcee, her father had to take the throne, the princess next in line. Her coronation in 1953 became the first major international event broadcast live on TV, a burst of pageantry in post-war Britain that thrust the young queen into a position of privilege.
That my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service
and responsibility. Polls suggest the Queen remains very popular as the UK prepares to officially celebrate her Platinum Jubilee with stamps, souvenirs, and 4 days of festivities in June. Those events will include a military parade, street parties, and a concert here at Buckingham Palace. But today, the Queen is marking her 7 decades on the throne, as she does every year, in quiet reflection. Jerika?
Very nice. Thank you, Roxana Saberi, for us. Straight ahead on the CBS Weekend News, mushers, dogs, and a grueling Minnesota marathon. Plus, Spotify podcaster Joe Rogan in the spotlight again for use of a racial slur. And meet the young musicians hoping to score a touchdown. Winter in Minnesota can be downright brutal, but that doesn't stop this cold weather marathon. Ryan Anderson and his dogs were the first of 10 teams to cross across the finish line at this year's Bear Grease Dog Sled Marathon. The grueling 300-mile trek is the longest sled dog race in the lower 48. In tonight's Weekend Journal, John Lordson of our CBS station WCCO shows us just what it takes to compete.
I love the energy of the dogs getting ready to go. And then they just turn quiet and, dial in once they're ready to start.
They are four-legged athletes, Alaskan and Siberian Huskies, bred for whatever awaits them along the Bear Grease. And every single one of their human companions took different paths in life before they ended up on this one.
My parents have always been doing it since I grew up, and I just kind of grew up around the sport, so here I am doing it now.
At 19 years old, Arrow Wallen is one of the youngest dog sledders in the marathon. He's even competing against his mom's team.
It's pretty exciting. Everything's kind of coming together. This is what we all wait for, train for, and get excited for the whole year, and now it's here, so it's ready to roll.
Dry land training takes place year-round, even in Alaska.
They pull me on a four-wheeler on an ATV.
Ryan Reddington and his team made the 72-hour drive from the land of the midnight sun to Minnesota. He's a former Bear Grease champion.
It's a really tough race with the hills, and the competition is very good. The people of Minnesota are awesome, and yeah, it's going to be a good race.
When the sun sets and the temperature drops, teams still push through the night. They navigate through the cold and dark of the wilderness, keeping an eye out for moose and other animals, and only stopping at mandatory checkpoints where vets can take a look at the dogs and the Huskies get a quick bite to eat.
We want to get them fed and get them resting as quick as we can so that they can get off of their feet and get some sleep and get ready to do it all over again.
The final destination for this race is Grand Portage near the Canadian border, and it's not just the mushers who go along for the ride. It's the fans too. Even when it's 15 below, they still come out in full force.
It was just really cool to see that everyone's so excited and supportive.
John Lordson, CBS News, Grand Marais, Minnesota.
I wonder what the dogs are saying. Well, still ahead on the CBS Weekend News, a New York City police officer didn't see this coming. We'll tell you what happened next.
In these times, every physical shop has to have a digital presence.
Fiverr made it so easy to find the right freelance talent to create the website to tell our story. Now we have a digital storefront that feels like an extension of our physical one.
Whether it be people walking through our door or people hundreds of miles away looking at our website, we want everyone to feel like they know us, and that's essential to our business growing.
Find the talent you need to transform your business today. Fiverr.
This used to be me on a health kit. It was so hard to keep up. I needed a solution. Then I discovered Kenco. Over 50 different organic fruits and vegetables. Hit with some freeze-dried magic delivered straight to my door. That's magic. Now I can start the day with a delicious healthy smoothie and none of the hassle. Kenco. A fresh start made smoother.
Medical school was very stressful. Sleepless nights, eating on the go. I lost a lot of hair during that time. It's sometimes challenging to find something that is both safe and effective. Nutrafol is 100% drug-free and is natural. We have over 1,700 doctors who recommend it to their patients. As a medical community, we are evolving because you can't argue with clinical proof. Start your hair growth journey at Nutrafol.com.
South Park, the 25th season. New Wednesdays on Comedy Central.
Spotify's popular podcaster Joe Rogan is apologizing for, quote, shameful past use of a racial slur. A video showing Rogan using the slur numerous times in past episodes was shared by the singer India Arie. She has now joined other musicians removing her catalog from Spotify in protest of what she called Rogan's, quote, language around race. Rogan has also been criticized recently for sharing COVID misinformation. Well, a New York City police officer is recovering tonight after a driver made a dangerous lane change. Take a look. The NYPD sergeant was sideswiped by this white SUV to his right, forcing his motorcycle into a wall. Amazingly, he got up and walked away. The officer suffered multiple non-life-threatening injuries. The driver of the SUV was ticketed for an unsafe lane change. Well, next on the CBS Weekend News, the Youth Orchestra Los Angeles gets ready for a super performance on one of the world's biggest stages. Any guesses?
Small business owners know they've got to be prepared for anything. You gotta be prepared! And when you use Constant Contact, prepare accordingly. Let's send this. Let's sell this. Let's win this. With email marketing and more to drive your business forward. Try it free at ConstantContact.com.
It takes about 200 steps to make a pair of Tecovas boots. But it only takes about 10 steps to fall in love with a pair. At Tecovas, we've got a style for every style and comfort for every occasion. Find your pair at Tecovas.com.
Oh man, all out of bourbon. Looks like one of us is gonna have to go to the store.
Or we can get drinks delivered fast with Drizzly. Drizzly makes it easy to shop a huge selection of beer, wine, and liquor from wherever I am. I just open the app, find what I want, and it's at my door in under 60 minutes. Plus, Drizzly lets me shop from multiple stores in my area and compare prices on thousands of products.
Drizzly.
Ding dong, Drizzly.
How much time do you make for yourself every day?
I don't know if I make very much time for myself. I'm constantly going. I don't like to be idle. If I have a down moment, I'm helping somebody else.
Do you mind if I share something with you that hopefully will help you find a little more peace every day?
I'd love to.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. The Daily J, it's 7 minutes of inspiration and meditation that can transform your life. How are you feeling now?
I feel like that's the most I've sat still for a while, but it was really nice.
Try it with me today, only on Calm.
Finally tonight, next Sunday, most eyes will be on the Bengals and Rams for Super Bowl 56. But as CBS's Joy Benedict reports, there's another talented team worth watching.
SoFi Stadium is almost ready to host the biggest game in football, but the LA Rams won't be the only hometown favorite, hoping to harmonize on this field.
I think it's great that we get to be there and show everybody that we can do something magical.
For 17-year-old Steve Corvera, something magical involves the clarinet.
It just makes me feel like I'm on another planet.
He is one of 20 musicians selected to perform with the Youth Orchestra of Los Angeles during the pregame of the Super Bowl.
It's just amazing that what we're getting to do. You know, I grew up in a place in South Central Los Angeles where when people think of the part of the city, they don't think of like the good things that happen.
I'm elated. I'm so grateful to be doing this opportunity.
High school senior Rachel Keevy is a flautist with a goal.
People need to see that the flute is a versatile instrument.
The group is performing with gospel duo Mary Mary. Those selected were chosen from high school seniors and recent graduates of YOLA, a program that has been helping young people fall in love with music for 15 years. It is funded through the LA Philharmonic, providing instruments and instruction to children in underserved communities.
I just think this program is really good because it shows that minorities can be a part of music, especially classical music, because we're like very like underrepresented.
The Beckman Yola Center here in Inglewood just opened a few months ago. It's actually one of 5 Yola centers throughout Los Angeles County, now serving more than 1,500 students. And although their song is just one part of a day full of entertainment, these students hope their performance will be the sweet sound that inspires others to dream big. Joy Benedict, CBS News, Los Angeles.
We'll be watching. Well, that's the CBS Weekend News for this Sunday. Coming up tonight on 60 Minutes, Anderson Cooper investigates Canada's unmarked graves of Indigenous children attending residential schools. I'm Jerika Duncan here in New York. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.
A high-performance work environment is about attitude. It's about energy and collaboration. It's about breathing life into your workspace. Magnetic, dry erase whiteboard wall panels from Magnatag. Whitewalls.com. Bring your office to life.
I'm Margaret Brennan in Washington, and today on Face the Nation, alarming new intelligence reports about Russian plans for after the January 6th attack on the Capitol.
President Trump said I had the right to overturn the election. President Trump is wrong.
Then the